Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me today is Sam West, and we're going to be talking about the spell Burning Hands. All right, Sam, initial thoughts.
Oh, Burning Hands is level 1 fireball. It's just how it works. This is the out the gate damage standard that basically all the casters get. There are a bunch of subclasses that get it because it's iconic, right? It is a sorcerer wizard spell predominantly, though, and this is going to be the spell that every other spell that you can cast at first level is going to have to compete with damage-wise. This is the kind of effect that gives you out the gate the feeling of playing the wizard, the feeling of playing the sorcerer, the character that's job is to deal with lots of little things. That's what Burning Hands does. And for basically the first 3 to 5 levels of the game, basically up until you get Fireball, this will be a damage spell you can always fall back on as a useful means of dealing with things, lots of things.
Now, strictly damage spells. What about versus magic missile?
That's a yes. So this is 3d6 damage versus 3d4 plus 3 damage, right? That's magic missile damage 3d4 plus 3. This is 3d6. The magic missile's big upside is it always does the damage and does it to exactly who you want it to do. So magic missile is very useful in a situation where you need to put down 3 very small creatures that you know have like 2-3 hit points. Burning Hands is at its best when you can hit more than 2 creatures in a cone. If you can get more than 2 things in a Burning Hands, it is likely just better than magic missile because half of 3d6 doubled, right? Because you're hitting 2 creatures at minimum is the floor of is magic missile damage, right? So if you can get 2 things with this with Burning Hands, you're doing roughly the same damage as magic missile is guaranteed. And magic missile, and then you also have the upside, right, of Burning Hands doing potentially double that damage should both the creatures fail. Any additional creatures you get beyond that make the spell leagues better than magic missile. But again, magic missile has a way better range. This is only a 15-foot cone from you. So both will have their use cases. Both will have situations where you're like, all right, I want to have both of these damage spells on me because they're both useful in different places. And I like that. I'm glad that exists. I do think that Burning Hands is the slightly better of the options just because it rewards clever positioning. It can have way higher power ceilings where you can get, if you can get like 6 creatures in the cone, you're doing insane damage numbers for a single action. That is where I think Burning Hands compares best to magic missile. I think this is going to be slightly better or more useful on your character sheet, but you're going to likely want to have both.
Now, yeah, all right. Also, and we're going to have kind of the same conversation here, but what about Fire Bolt as a cantrip? That's the biggest advantage is not using up a first level slot.
Sure.
But it's also got range.
It more aptly, I think, would compare to something like Acid Splash because that hits 2 things for a d6. Firebolt also is slightly longer ranged. Acid Splash is slightly longer ranged. Cantrips, they're both substantially less damage. Going from so if you think about how Burning Hands can function, it does 3d6 times the number of creatures you can hit with it, right? So if you hit 3 creatures with it, you're doing 96 damage for a first level spell slot. That is very good when you compare it to something like Chromatic Orb, which is only doing 3d8 damage. When you then compare it to a cantrip doing 1d10 damage or a cantrip doing 2d6 damage, this is the difference between taking, like, if you, for example, if you compare to Acid Splash, hits 2 things. If Burning Hands hits 2 things, you're doing 66 damage front loaded versus 2d6 damage front loaded, which means for a first level spell slot, you're basically expediting 3 rounds of Acid Splashes, right? You're getting 66 damage worth of Acid Splash all at once in one Burning Hands. That means you're spending a spell slot to save rounds, which is one of the most powerful things you can do in D&D. D&D combat is specifically about mitigating action economy and trying to get more actions out of your turn than your opponents are getting. That you need to be like reducing their actions or giving yourself extra actions with haste, or using actions that are worth more than a regular action typically is. That's typically what spells do. So Burning Hands, if you can hit 2, 3, 4 creatures with it, you're doing far more damage than the regular action attack would deal. And that's where it breaks the action economy and is very useful.
All right. Yeah, I don't guess there's a whole lot more we can say about it for combat, but out of combat, what do you do with Burning Hands?
I think we can come back around to combat because I think we can talk about the cone. It's a little bit interesting. But we real quick out of combat. It's a flamethrower. For first level spells, you can just have a flamethrower. That's kind of fun. I think this spell could be more usable out of combat than people give it credit. Covering everything in a 15-foot cone and fire and lighting everything on fire, That's a lot better than a 5-foot area to create bonfire. That's a lot better than like trying to ignite something with a firebolt, right? Being able to just say, okay, this gigantic area in front of me in this tavern is now just on fire. That'll spread faster. That will cause problems. Burning Hands does that. If you're DMing for it and you're finding that people are using Burning Hands a bit too frequently in the other levels, like if they get in a tavern brawl and they fire off a Burning Hands, light shit on fire. There's alcohol places. Burst things into flames. Cause a real havoc from someone releasing a flamethrower cone. It goes up too, right? If you're only looking at like 8-foot ceilings, the ceiling is catching fire. This is a cone. This comes out in all 3 dimensions. It goes up, down, left, right, everywhere. So you can create tremendous amounts of havoc with a single use of Burning Hands, where you can just light buildings on fire for free. This can be an arsonist's dream. This is the kind of effect that I think more people could get use out of if you just are if your DM's a little bit liberal with how fire works and fire spread and its value.
All right. Similarly, I think, did you mention create bonfire? I think you heard you slip it in there. Yeah, that's but again, that goes back to first level spot versus cantrip. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you got the time and you just need to burn stuff down, then yeah, create bonfire.
A tinderbox will do it then. You don't even need the cantrip, right? If you have the time and you're not in a rush, you can very slowly burn most things to the ground in D&D. Burning Hands is just, I need that fire right now. I need it to spread really fast.
That's fun.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think this is genuinely a useful out of combat tool that most people don't necessarily think to use. If you're a sorcerer and you're tasked with creating a diversion, lighting a building on fire, lighting a market on fire, doing something to that effect will draw attention. People will quickly move to stop an arsonist. And if you're trying to break into somewhere and you don't mind, like, oh yeah, you know what? These people are all gross and evil anyway. I'm going to light part of their town on fire and run away from the cops while the rest of the party breaks into the police office, right? That's a thing you can do. And that's a useful tool for Burning Hands. It's also like, I would recommend thinking about the image that Burning Hands projects, because again, it's 3-dimensional. It's a 15-foot cone. It feels small on the D&D battle map. In reality, when you think of what a 15-foot cone of flame looks like, it is large. That thing will burst out from you.
Like World War II guys firing into the bunkers with their flamethrowers.
Yes. It is a tremendous amount of flame. And like that, even in that specific example you just gave, Bob, right? Those cones are going to be smaller and more tight typically than a Burning Hands is. Burning Hands spreads out faster. It gets wider and birthy fast. Like you are getting a big area of brilliant flame on command that will cause some amount of notice at minimum. Most of the time it will cause panic in closed environments, right? Now, granted, we are in high magic settings, so it could just be people are used to Burning Hands as a first level spell being just, oh yeah, people can walk around if they're slightly above commoners and do that. That's not that impressive anymore. If you're in a lower magic setting, though, if you're in a situation where like you're sort of feigning the people are still amazed by magic, even though it's been everywhere forever, Burning Hands can look and feel incredible.
All right. Have we covered just about everything there?
I mean, we can wrap back around to talking about cones in combat and the reason I like. Yeah. So it being a cone coming from self, I think makes it one of my favorite good spells, right? This is one of my favorite good damage spells. I talked about this when I talked about Lightning Bolt briefly in the Fireball video. I like spells that encourage you to think about where you're standing and give you a fixed area, because often you're going to have to make real choices about hitting your allies to get more monsters in, or putting yourself in danger to hit more monsters. And I think both those decisions are interesting choices that lead to more engaging like encounters. It being a cone from you means you have to be willing to get within 15 feet of a group of creatures. If the Burning Hands doesn't kill them, you could be in big danger. You could go down very quickly, especially at first level, right? There's a good risk reward play pattern here where you get a very powerful effect, but it is on a battle mat, very short range. 30-foot move speeds are now the standard. Touches Cauldron of Everything and the new races that came out in Morkanon's. They're all 30-foot move speeds. That's just the new default. So everything is going to be able to easily get within range of you after you use a Burning Hands. That makes the risk reward play pattern very exciting. And encourages you to work with your teammates to be like, I need to get to a safe spot so I can Burning Hands. Can you come with me? Can you position yourself somewhere that I don't necessarily have to let you on fire, but you can also keep the things from killing me? That I think is some of the more interesting things you can do with Burning Hands. It also means like if you're playing a halfling Lightfoot, you can share your ally space, go underneath their legs, Burning Hands out from behind them, and scoot on back. That's a neat little use case.
Now, you say that, but when you're talking about the action economy and all that, and delivering more total damage and stuff, this is the sort of thing where I think, as a player, as the wizard that's going to be casting this, I don't want to be that close. I'd much rather hang back and fire off a magic missile or even a firebolt. I'm not going to do as much damage, but I'm not going to be like right in their face when it doesn't kill them.
So here's the substantial difference between those two scenarios. I think this is an easy trap to fall into. If you not doing that damage when your DM knows you can do that much damage, means that encounters likely are being prepared to threaten you even when you do that much damage, which means if you are only spending a d10 damage on their total hit point pool, the odds of the encounter going longer is more likely stacked in their favor, in the monster's favor. If you're fighting groups of enemies, if you're fighting 8 kobolds, for example, that'll have more actions on average than your 4-person party. And a d10 isn't necessarily going to kill a kobold when you hit with it. Burning Hands probably will. Those are in situations where you are actually putting yourself in more danger by not dealing with the monsters faster. The longer you're in the encounter, the more likely you are to go down.
I'm putting my friends in danger.
Sure. You're putting your paladin, your fighter in danger first, but once they go down, what are you going to do?
Loot their shit.
You're going to get run down by 8 kobolds and stabbed to death, right? Like, that's what realistically is going to happen. And most encounters in D&D aren't going to be that lethal. Most encounters in D&D, you probably can play safely and throw out fireballs or firebolts and spend the extra 3 rounds doing the one action I might miss. And then maybe nothing happens. That's fine or whatever. Next round or next turn. I think I like the experience of big, flashy, impactful things, short 2-3 round encounters where every action and move is important. I find that to be more engaging and fun for everyone than I find the let's all sit down, use the cantrips we're given, use our regular attack rolls, don't use our resources, conserve them, do 12 encounters like that, and then fight a big bad. I find that to be kind of grueling, kind of boring, which is why I like the encounters that are big, flashy, life on the line. You have to use your resources. You have to engage with it. I think those are more fun for me personally. And that's where Burning Hands definitely shines.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun spell. All right, everyone, that was Burning Hands. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, everyone, for watching and listening.
What about the arbitrary score, Rob?
Oh, shucks. All right, give it Sam's score.
This is a 5 out of 5. Absolutely. Oh. This is a spell that will, if you take this at first level, encounters can be built around it. This can single-handedly defeat large groups of enemies. This is definitely a spell at first level that will reshape how the game is played more so than a lot of other features do. There are not many things in the game that do this much damage to this many creatures, should you be able to line them up. And I think that in and of itself makes it sort of a standardizing factor of D&D, a standardization of play that you can, if you want to be taking actions, you're competing with Burning Hands because Burning Hands does so much damage all at once that you have to respect it and you have to shape encounters around it.
All right, you heard it here. 5 out of 5. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, our full review of the spell, and other fun things.